I think that adversity, though, was kind of like a superpower because uh, I have had employees that have never had struggle in their life. And whenever there's any kind of adversity, they can't handle it. And I just think, wow, I'm grateful for the struggle that I went through because it gave me this ability to do and handle and create and be something that is able to handle whatever comes at us.
Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. All right, we are back with another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We have a very special guest today, Kimberly Fischer, who is the owner and founder of Main Event Grill. You've got a lot of other irons in the fire, but one of the things that was interesting to me about this, we've got a lot of friends that have tried to be in the restaurant industry, and it is living in the belly of the beast. It's never easy to start and run a company, much less get it to be successful. But you guys have been doing this for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. It's obviously working. But how did you get that momentum going in such a difficult industry?
I have a friend that says if you have somebody that you really, really don't like, tell them to open a restaurant because it's not easy. We started, backstory, when my husband and I got married in 2002, the caterer that we had set up for our wedding no-showed. And we had a little gap between the wedding and the reception where we went out and got in a limo and spent some quality time, just the two of us. And when we arrived at the reception, my wedding party was in the kitchen making food. So they figured it out. They were like, we're going to make this happen. And after that, I felt as though, man, that was super stressful. And how can I help other people? So I spent years just catering for free. I used to make wedding cakes and just drop them off. Like CPC, I would make cupcakes for them. One year I made this beautiful display of, I think it was about 500 cupcakes with their logo on it. And I just did it for fun because I enjoyed it. And then in 2016, my husband and I got him to come help me. We were catering for a wedding for 350 people, and I didn't really know them. It just was word of mouth kind of thing. And he looked at me and he goes, "Why are we not getting paid for this?" And we've been business owners forever. I started my first business when I was 22 years old. And, businesses come and go. Things, we do really well for a while or something would happen. And we happened to be in a season when we were deciding if we were going to continue doing the business that we were currently doing or try to do something different. And he said, let's do a catering business. And we had been in the Dave Ramsey plan and I didn't want to go into debt. So we were really, really deciding how do we do this the best way. And we decided to open a food truck.
So you guys didn't just take Dave Ramsey. You guys have actually taught financial peace.
We did. We had paid off $80,000 worth of debt in 8 months. We had 3 months worth of savings. We were debt-free for the first time in our lives. We were incredibly disciplined about how we spent our money. And I love being in that space, in that season of our life, because it finally felt like we had money. And it's so stupid because all it was is that we had a plan instead of just reacting and going, oh, now we're broke. Now what are we going to do? We had a plan of how we were going to spend our money. So I really appreciated that about Dave Ramsey. And going into this, starting a catering business, I didn't want to pay rent somewhere and not have a steady flow of income. I was concerned about how we were going to be able to financially handle all of it. And so we bought a reconstructed RV for $8,000. We sold the insides of it to a traveling church that were turning a bus into a traveling church. And so they took everything, the couches, the refrigerators, everything. And my husband literally, he would go to work during the day. He had a job. And at night, he would be out there tinkering and hammering away. And the really funny thing about it is that we lived in Bayshore at the time. And they voted that food trucks cannot be parked in people's driveways anymore because of us. Because we made our neighbors mad. But the kids and I would help when we could, but really it was all him. And we opened our doors for the very first time in September of 2016. So the big thing was the food trucking was an interesting industry. It's not an easy one to make money in. And boy, we learned really, really hard lessons on that. So sorry, I could talk forever.
No. I just want to stop you on that because what you said is so important. Like you learned hard lessons, but because you weren't leveraged, you could actually, those lessons, some people might call them failure, but they actually became an experiment because they didn't end the process. And with a lot of people, they get leverage. And this is not just in a business, but in life. Like when things go south, the more leverage you have, because debt is just an accelerant. And when everything's going great and the sun's shining and the streets are dry, you go faster. But then you hit black ice or a moose and the wreck just damages that much more because debt exasperates all of those curveballs. The learning curve becomes a lot harder to hit when there's debt. Do you see that as part of, like that alone, as part of your success, being able to actually learn from and get back up from some of those setbacks early on rather than being crushed by them?
I do, but my view about debt now is debt is just a tool. It's not something to be afraid of. It's just something like, most of us aren't going to be able to save $400,000 to buy a house. So it's just a tool so that you can buy a house. But I feel like so many people live on debt or they borrow from tomorrow because they want it today. And that was the lesson that we got from Dave Ramsey that I had to learn, and so did my husband. We had to stop borrowing from our future so that we could enjoy something today and live within our means. And really, honestly, living within your means is a huge advantage on anything, because when things come up, I have an emergency savings. So we started as a food truck. We did the food truck for a while, and then...
And how long is a while? How long was it? How
so
long before you opened your actual physical location?
2019, we got into the Alaska State Fair, and at that time it was 12 days, and we made more in 12 days than we did the entire year in the food truck. And I told my husband I'm not doing it anymore. So we had actually in 2019 also taken over a location to do all of our catering because the food truck was just too small. And that location we talked about, let's open up as a restaurant. Let's see what happens. And so in February of 2020, we opened our doors for the first time. And
it's a rough time to start a restaurant.
It's a terrible time to open a restaurant. And I can tell you, because of what we'd been through with Dave Ramsey, because of what we understood about financial peace, I had an emergency savings. And so
you actually weather the storm of everything else being shut down. Nobody, sorry to cut you off again, but I mean, there's a lot of restaurants just here in Anchorage that went out of business.
Places that I used to go all the time. Like they were my favorite from when I was a kid.
Because they couldn't weather the storm.
I watched them close their doors.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, so for us, that was very, very significant. And it was interesting. One of the things that we say all the time is pivot at work. Well, that didn't work. Let's pivot. Or, what can we do instead? And so my husband drug a barbecue. He went inside and got a barbecue from the back and drug it out to the street. We pulled some picnic tables and put them outside, and we put a big sign up that said street side barbecue, and we sold plates of food. We were like, okay, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're just going to try every single possibly thing that everything under the sun. We're going to throw something out there. If it works, it doesn't work. And I think because we were just starting out, that was to our advantage, because we weren't already, this is who we are. Do it. This is how we do it. We didn't have any of that. We were just like, let's try it. So yeah, it really, and I really believe it was the grace of God that we're still alive. We slowly grew. Every time they closed the city down, they closed it down 3 times. And the third time I walked into the kitchen and I told my staff, I said, get ready. We're going to get really busy. And they're like, really? I said, yeah, every time they've closed down, people get sad and they have to stay home. And so they start ordering food, and we're happy food.
Here. Yeah.
We're the food that makes your belly feel good. So yeah, it was a very interesting time. It was crazy. So we were super grateful.
Well, and the other thing that you said is you were, not so many words, but you're patient with yourself to start slow. You didn't start with a restaurant. You started a food truck.
Didn't go into great debt. Didn't go, let's, mortgage the farm. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I mean, even going back to Dave Ramsey's baby steps, and they're not patient. They want to go so fast. And what you and Bill did, you were able to go slow and smooth and actually learn from the process. So your mistakes or the setbacks, although probably painful and uncomfortable in the moment, weren't devastating. And I think there's a lot that people can learn from that, because we try so hard to, whether it's make up for lost time or we know somebody else in the office who's so far ahead, rather than just go at our speed and learn from the process. And what works in financial independence isn't what makes you the most money over the next 3 months. It's what's sustainable over the next 30 years. And with a restaurant business, you have to think that way, because a great idea can very easily be a flash in the pan if you're not sustainable. Would you agree?
Sure. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And anything that is worth doing, it's going to take time for it to be successful. And most people quit before they even see the fruit of their labor. We had one person, so my husband and I, when we were food trucking, we ended up joining the Food Truck Association, and they were like a bunch of food trucks that all came together, and we were banding together to try and make the industry better for us. So fighting against the regulations that didn't make sense, and then also advocating for each other. Like, we should be paid what is reasonable. Like, for instance, people will say, I want a food truck to come to my wedding. How about 3? Oh, how many people are going to be at your wedding? Well, 50. So you want everyone to share 50 people. That's not a lot of money for everyone to share. They just don't understand. They don't get it. And we used to do this event in the fall at UAA, and my husband advocated for us to get a minimum fee, because they would bring 7, 8 food trucks and we'd all park and not make any money. So we used to teach something that was called the Cost to Open to every new food trucker. And then I would take new people that were getting in the industry on my truck, and I would say, let me show you how we do it. We're very efficient. And I would just try to train them so that they were ready for what was to come, because it's a hard industry to get into. And this one woman, she bought a truck, fixed it up, opened for 1 day and shut. Closed her doors, where she was like, nope, not for me. And Bill and I still laugh about that story, because we're like, 1 day, you didn't even give it enough time to see if it, anything would come of it. But it's a very interesting thing. It's how people, the stock market, they want to buy today and sell because they're afraid, instead of hanging on to it and waiting for when it, and it's just, you can't live life in this reactive, because you'll never really get to the meat of it.
Well, and I think, so I know your personal health is something that's important to you. I mean, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and just some of the things that you're working on. And I think of, every January 1st at the gym, like, everybody is gung-ho. They're downloading like special forces workouts off the internet. They haven't touched a weight in 20 years, but yeah, we're going to do what Delta Force does, because that should work. And they make it, maybe it's more than a day, but it's like a week, but they don't actually establish the habits. They number one, they never get time to find what works for them, but they also don't figure out how to make that sustainable and manageable. They're looking for the quick wins. Like, let's get rich quick. Whatever the thing is, the magic pill. And you guys had the heart, no, we're going to do it slow, but we're going to do it right. And I think, that goes back to, number one, you're no stranger to adversity. And you already said that good things take time. Where did you start? Can you bring us back to some of your backstory, how you developed some of that grit and the ability. I mean, life knocks everybody down. I think what separates people like yourself from just most people, what we call normal, is everybody gets knocked down, but a lot of people have not figured out how to get back up.
How to believe in themselves. Yeah. I was kicked out of my house when I was 11 years old, and I've been in foster care. I was in shelters, and I've couch surfed. I talk about how coffee makes me happy, because I used to sit at Denny's for hours because it was warm inside there. And for 50 cents, I could sit at the table and probably make the waitress very unhappy, but she was doing a big service for me to be there and sit in that space. And so I'm always like, I'm never going to give up coffee because it's my happy place. But I think, having gone through that, there was a point as a teenager that I just felt really sorry for myself and miserable. And I just felt like everything's so unfair. And then I kind of got sick of feeling sorry for myself. And I realized that if I was going to do anything with my life, it's because I'm going to make a choice. I have a choice. I used to have it on my wall. I used to write, I had a picture that I had made, put on a canvas that says, I have a choice, because no matter what happens, I can always choose. I can choose to live in poverty and be incredibly happy, or I can choose to live with abundance and be incredibly happy. It doesn't matter where I'm at, I can be happy. And that's when I just decided that the people and the adults around me were making decisions that I couldn't control. And so I was going to choose to have something different. And I didn't want to be a statistic. And I believe the American dream isn't dead. And I think that with enough effort and perseverance, you can do anything. So I think I started reading books at about 25, and they started changing my perspective in a dramatic way. And I realized that even to the point of the way that you think, I started writing things on my mirror because I wanted to change the way that I think. And it's like a computer. We've been uploaded with stuff from when we were kids that maybe isn't really meant for us. And we can put something else in there and decide to be somebody different. And so, yeah, I think that adversity, though, was kind of like a superpower, because I have had employees that have never had struggle in their life. And whenever there's any kind of adversity, they can't handle it. And I just think, wow, I'm grateful for the struggle that I went through, because it gave me this ability to do and handle and create and be something that is able to handle whatever comes at us. So I think you do go through life and you have ups and downs, and everybody has some sort of story of struggle. You start to look back and realize that there's always going to be ups and downs, and this too is going to be okay. So
I think what you said is also true, though. I mean, going through hard things reminds you that you're the type of person who can weather the storm.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had to do that, I mean, the storms of life will eventually come. Like you can try to avoid them as long as but they will find you. But being able to look inside yourself and know that, no, I didn't want this. I didn't sign up for this, but this is something I can persevere through. And what you went through, I mean, your story, I think, resonates with me more because my wife has some similar experiences. So she remembers having Christmas in a homeless shelter. And so this definitely strikes a chord with me, Kimberly. But I think even though what you experienced was even more pronounced and extreme, I think there's a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines of their own life, waiting for somebody else to change their circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of got sick of that. I mean, I sat there feeling sorry for myself and woe is me, and I deserve, or whatever, these parents or these adults and all those things. And yeah, I don't know. You sit in that long enough and you're just like, I'm sick of me. I don't like this anymore. And yeah, and so I tried college, I tried trade school, I tried all kinds of different jobs. And then I realized that, you know what? I'm never going to gain freedom if I put all of my eggs in somebody else's basket. So yeah, when I got my first apartment when I was 16, and I started paying budgeting and figuring out, money coming in, money going out, things that I want to do, how long it'll take to save up to do things that I want to do. And I was like, this is horrible. I think my first job was like $4.75 an hour or something like that. Yeah. And so that's what made me start businesses. At 22, I was like, I don't see me being successful as long as I have a W-2. Working for somebody else, I feel like it's always going to be this chasing after the carrot and stick on the treadmill. And so, yeah. So I started a business. I got fired from my job, and I never looked back. I haven't had a W-2 since.
So I see you, Kimberly, as somebody who has a high tolerance for ambiguity. And somebody who's willing to step in uncertainty. You don't have all the answers yet, but you're willing to take the step and start figuring that out. Is that true?
So I am not one that likes change, which is really interesting. Recently, I've reprogrammed that in myself because I didn't like that about me. I like to be in control. And as you can imagine, my life was chaos, out of control as a child. So as an adult, it became, I really want to be in control. So I wanted to be able to predict everything that happens and everything that comes. And then about 5 years ago, I decided that change really would upset me. And so I needed to change that part of myself. And I did, I reprogrammed it on writing it on my mirror. But one thing that I do very well is I pivot when things don't work out, and I don't mind rolling up my sleeves and making it happen. Like, we've decided we're going to do this. We're going this direction. I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to go that way. I am going to be as hard and as disciplined as I can, because I'm resourceful and I can make it happen. And I don't ever feel like, woe is me, and oh, it's all over, and I'm just going to give up. I don't feel that way. I feel like I can figure this out.
So the financial industry, as you know, I mean, you guys have your own investing background, but the financial industry is terrible at getting people to focus on everything they can't control. Mm-hmm. Interest rates, mm-hmm. tax rates, wars in the Middle East, whatever the economic winds are doing at the time. What is inflation? And that's what the news is always spouting. So what do you tell somebody who is focused on what they can't control? How do you get them to shift that to what they can control?
So I don't know if you've ever listened to Dean Graziosi, but he talks about energy, and I really like this. He talks about, so you have to be careful about things that are taking your energy. You want to make sure you're focusing on things that are giving you energy. So I exercise every day. I've made this decision, and I'm going to do it. And no matter what, every single day, I'm like at 300 and some odd days. I decided for 1 year, I'm going to work out every day. That gives me lots of energy. Watching the news, it takes my energy. I don't know anybody that's ever watched the news and been like, babe, did you watch the 5 o'clock news? You should totally catch it. I feel amazing.
Feel so much better about
my life. Yeah, never. So I don't watch the news anymore because it sucks the energy out of me. Certain people, I avoid certain conversations with them. I don't avoid people. We don't talk about that subject because it's going to draw energy out of me. And so I'm aware of the things that are going to tell me that I can't. And I try to load myself up with the things that tell me that I can, and stay away from whatever I can that tells me that I can't. And I think that's great advice for anybody. And honestly, we have no control over what's happening in the news. I will never be able to control the price of oil, but I can control who I interact with and how I interact with them and what I do in the world. And I have a family member that in 2020 moved out of the United States because he said it's gonna end. The world's coming to an end. Mm-hmm. And he strongly suggested that I followed him. And I said, I believe that I was born for such a time as this. And if the world comes to an end, people need me. I need to be here to help people. I need to be a positive and force. And I have been through worse. And so, you look at wars around the world, people still exist in those places. They still need jobs. They still need to eat. They still need a home. And it doesn't gain me anything to worry about one more day about something that I have no control over. So I was like, well, I appreciate that you're leaving and I'm very sorry, but I wish you the best and I'm staying here.
Would you say that it's accurate then that when you focus on what you can't control, it actually weakens or undermines your ability to act on what you can control?
Of course, it makes you feel paralyzed. And then you start second guessing everything because you think, why should I even bother? Yeah, of course.
Are you familiar with the term learned helplessness?
Yes, but explain.
So it's basically the idea that, so it goes back to Dr. Skinner, who did a lot of experiments on animals back in the 60s and 70s, stuff that you probably couldn't get away with now. But basically, he was doing experiments with dogs and putting them in situations where he would take away their ability to control, is actually electric shock. But then he would give that control back, or at least they could escape the situation. They could jump over a divider to no longer have the shock. But what he learned is that after enough exposure without control, the animal no longer believes it can do anything to change its circumstances. And it doesn't take very long. And do you see that in human beings?
Of course, yeah.
Who spend enough time believing they can't control something that even when now they can pivot, they can change their circumstances. They don't because they no longer believe that they have any influence over how their life plays out.
Yeah, I could see that. I also think that they're not lost. I think they could change it at any
There's still
time.
hope.
It's just a choice. We're one choice away from a whole. I feel like if you can change your perspective, you change your life. If you want your life to be different tomorrow, it can be. It literally can be different tomorrow. If you want it to be, all you have to do is make a choice. And it's a perspective shift. And it's that perspective that I'm not hopeless. It is not hopeless. I can still do something.
You can still get in the driver's seat of your own life.
Yeah, I totally 100% believe that.
So how did you start changing your perspective? Because you said you got to a point where you're sick of making excuses. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
You're sick of making excuses. You're sick of being a victim. You're going to reclaim the agency in your life and start doing something about it. It wasn't your fault where you were, but it was your responsibility to change your circumstances.
Certainly.
What flipped that switch?
Yeah, I think that once you become an adult now, it's no longer your parents' fault. Wherever you are, you now have a choice. So it took me a little while. I'd love to say that I changed overnight, but I didn't. What happened for me is I just knew I wanted different. I wanted it to be different, and I kept seeking to find different. But what really changed my life was reading books. My husband and I, we got married. He had children. We had a blended family, and then we had a daughter of our own. And it brought a whole bunch of challenges for us. And we almost got divorced. And that's when I thought to myself, I need help here. And so that's when I started looking for books to teach me how do I be a better wife? How do I do this better? I knew I could do better. And then it was, how do I be a better parent? And I knew I could do better. And I read the book, Love and Respect. And that changed our marriage almost overnight. Because literally in the first chapter, he made a suggestion and I was like, well, I'll try it. And I watched my husband become a different person. And I called my best friend that day and said, I have got the book for you, thinking like I can manipulate my husband, but I didn't realize that he was just so starved of the affection that he needed that I didn't even realize. I'd been loving him the way that I thought he needed to be loved. But as soon as I gave him respect, he was like, everything's wonderful. And it was a really interesting thing. And then I read Loving Our Kids on Purpose. And when I read that book, my parenting changed. All it was a perspective shift for me. And that's why I've always really loved books. And for a long time, I prayed that God would bring me a mentor. And I would ask these other women, older women and further seasons than me, would you meet with me? Could we have coffee? And everybody was always so busy. And it made me just so frustrated. And then I would pray again, God, just give me a mentor. And then this guy comes and goes, hey, I think I'm going to mentor your husband. And I'd be like, oh, that's great. And then, Lord, bring me a mentor. And another guy comes to me. And I don't know why they're asking me, but they're saying, hey, I'm going to mentor your husband. And I'm thinking, okay, Lord, what the heck? And then about a year ago, I was reading a book, John Maxwell. And in the beginning of the book, he said, my author mentor has never met me, but I've read everything he's ever written. And he has been mentoring me for years. And I put the book down and I realized I kept praying for mentors and God kept bringing me books. And I probably read 200 books now. And anytime somebody suggests a book, I write it down because I'm like, I'll either audio listen to it or I will buy a copy of it. Or I really have loved to see the perspective of people that have gone before me and how they see the world differently and how it changes my world. Like the superpower thing, that's Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. When he said that about how this is your superpower, this is actually not something that's a crutch. And not that people that grew up healthy, happy, wonderful families can't have successful businesses, but typically, I mean, even Dave Ramsey says it, if you're ADD or ADHD, you're 800 times more likely to be a business owner because you weren't wired for public school. You weren't wired for the basic 9 to 5. You see the world differently. And it's nice to know that there's nothing wrong with you. I just did the Clifton strength test and I went like this when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, it all makes sense now. And then I texted one of my mentors and I said, I feel like I'm not broken. And he wrote back in capital letters, you are not broken. And I was like, thanks. Yeah, I'm not broken. I am actually wired specifically for such a time as this to do exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And I'm super grateful for it. So now, not that I'm volunteering, but I have coffee with everyone that asks now because I was so desperate for somebody to spend some time with me and everyone was too busy. And now I'm like, I'm never too busy. When do you want to have coffee? So
That's an amazing level of generosity, because it's one thing to get to a point where you can give, I mean, you give of your business. I was just at an event the other day that you guys would say sponsored, but you catered the whole thing, hundreds of people. But time is something you can't scale.
But we do it at, yeah, we don't make a profit off of
Yeah,
it.
the generosity, you can scale generosity,
Yeah.
but time, there's only 24 hours in each day. That's
It's
amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. I just feel like it's. I think it's important for us to be there for each other. That's what I think. I think that that's what life is all about.
So you've mentioned a few books already. Love and Respect, the Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. Read both of those. What is the most impactful book that you've read, let's say in the last year?
Well, I feel like the Bible is the most impactful in my life. Outside of that, in the last year,
Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
I know I haven't. I have my favorites. They're always right there.
What are a couple other favorites then?
I've been reading Russell Brunson. He's got 3 books. The Secrets. That one was really good. I'm trying to learn. Computers are like sucking the life out of me, but I'm trying to learn how to do things better online, and so I've been really trying to learn from the things that he teaches about traffic secrets and .com secrets, and just how to do all of that. That's been interesting and helpful. Recently, Story Brand with Don Miller. Yeah, that's been really good. Yeah. I just appreciate anybody that is good at anything and decides to teach us and help us to see the world in a little bit different of a way.
You have a unique ability, and this is just in these last few minutes, because we've talked before, years past, not about this stuff, but you have a unique ability to turn what 99% of people would see as an obstacle into an opportunity. And that's something that, just for our folks that are listening to this, like, that's so crucial, because you talked about market fluctuations, stock market going up, down. When the market goes down, and the joke is the stock market's the only store where, when everything's on sale, people run the other direction screaming. But you literally have the chance to buy some of the best companies in the world on sale at a discount, but it is not comfortable. And most of the world views that as an obstacle to their retirement, to their financial success, but it's a tremendous opportunity. And I think what you said, and obviously this has been something that it's not just in one area of your life, it's something that you have leveraged throughout your life, but that is something that I guarantee has set you apart for a very long time.
I appreciate that.
You see opportunity amidst the obstacles. It's like finding a rose in the midst of thorns. Yeah. Somebody else could focus on the thorns. You're focusing on the rose. That's super cool.
I do look at the world pretty positively, because I think everything happens for a purpose. But if you spend any time alive after a season, you start to realize that everything always does turn around. And like, okay, the stuff that happened to me as a child, today I look at it and I go, what a gift that was given to me, because my children didn't experience that. I'm a much better mother because of it. I have compassion and understanding for my staff in ways that I normally wouldn't have. I have resilience that is there that I wouldn't have. I'm actually grateful for what I went through, and I make the joke that I would go through it again if it meant that the people around me would have the life that they have, because I have, you look back and you go, I'll never be that person. I won't be who they were. I'm going to be somebody better. I'm going to be a better version of that. And we should. Every generation says I'm going to be better than my parents. So, but I do have that kind of, everything is going to work out for the best. And I really, truly do believe that everything happens for a purpose. Not that it happens on purpose, because then that's like saying that bad things happen for a reason. And I don't think that. But I think what happens is that even though it was terrible and it was awful and the things that happened, what comes out of it is used for very good. And that's why I try to focus on. So that I don't think I'm always perfect. And anybody that's around me enough knows that I have my fair share of, I'm frustrated. I don't think it serves us any benefit to sit and wallow. So,
Well, I think some people, they think of optimism as something that it just means stick your head in the sand, and it's that Pollyanna, like you only see the good, and you're living in la la land, and that's definitely not you. But I also think of people who view optimism in another unhealthy way, is that things always get better. Like the metaphor I use is like people view life as a staircase where every step should take them a little bit higher. In fact, most people don't want a staircase; they want an escalator. They just want to stand there.
Elevator.
Yeah, but in reality,
Yeah,
your life shows that no, optimism is really more like climbing a mountain, where you have a view that at some point you will get to a summit, get to a peak, but you might have to cross some valleys to get there.
Have you ever heard of how they climb Everest? So you go from base camp up to the first camp, and then you have to go back down to base
acclimatize.
camp. Yeah, because you have to be climatized. And so, yeah, you're going to get up to 1, but then you're going to go to 2, and you're going to have to come back down to base camp. And that's the reality of life, is in order to get to the top, you have to keep going up and coming back down. Thing about it is that, like, if tomorrow Main Event closed its doors and it failed, I don't think that would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me, because I learned so much to get to this point now that when I climb up back again, it's going to be faster. And I'm going to have so many more skills in my toolbox that I'll be able to get there in a much easier, faster way than I did the last time. We have, currently we have real estate, and we have one real estate deal that has just been a real thorn in our side. And I looked at my husband and I'm like, I'm not worried about it. This is not normal. This is not normal for me. Usually I'm stressed out about money and all kinds of stuff, but I have emergency savings for every single one of our businesses. And I look at it and I go, we're resourceful. Until there's nothing left that we can do, there's no reason to like throw your hands up and feel helpless. I just feel like there's always something I can do to be successful.
Another thing that you said that I wanted to touch on too is that you were here for this moment in time. And I think of the story of Esther. Esther's uncle Mordecai is encouraging Esther to go before the king, and she's kind of delaying, and he tells her, like, God's hand will come and save, regardless of whether you're involved or not. But could you be here for such a time as this? Yeah. And it reminds me of another verse in Psalm 139. And you're familiar with the passage. It talks about being fearfully made and woven together in the inmost parts of our mother's womb. Everybody knows that, or a lot of people do. But there's a couple verses later, that says that our days were formed and fashioned before there was one of them. And the way that I think about that is, we are handmade by God, custom made, but the times that we are in, the scenarios, the circumstances, the people that we're around have also been tailored for us to fit inside that. Mm-hmm. And your story is proof of that you are here for this moment, and everything that you've experienced up until this point, Kimberly, has prepared you to show up to be the person that you need to be, not just for yourself and your family, but for everybody around you that depends on you.
I believe that the tide raises all boats. And so everything that I do, is the purpose behind it is I want to bring everyone with me. So, yeah.
So in closing, there's a lot of people, I mean, first of all, public schools teaching everybody's here on accident. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to be aimless when you feel like you're not supposed to be here anyway.
Fruit of teaching people that there's no purpose and no reason for anything is yeah, I agree.
So what do you tell somebody who is struggling? They're aimless. They're wandering. They're not sure what their purpose is supposed to be, or if they are, no idea how to get started. How do you encourage somebody to intentionally take steps forward to step into what God has called somebody to do?
I think it really depends on the person and what they're experiencing. I listened to Russell Brunson a couple years ago. He came and spoke to a group that I belong to, and he said, just like Jesus said that my sheep will hear my voice, there are people that need to learn from you. And in a while back, let's say 2020, I spoke in front of a group of women, and I thought, this is definitely what I'm supposed to do. This is who I'm supposed to be. And then I attended this training, and this guy, I talked to him afterwards, and I said, I have this heart to do this. And he goes, if you have things that you feel like you have learned and you don't teach other people that, you're being selfish. And I was like, oh, and then listening to Russell Brunson, and he said, you don't have to be the expert. You just have to be 5 years ahead of who you used to be. And the purpose of us all being here is to continue to just help each other through everything. And I really feel like whatever someone is struggling with, they should really reach out and try to find somebody else that has struggled and has gotten through it. But if you've gotten through something, you should be reaching back and helping somebody else through it. I used to, one of the first leadership books that I ever read was, they said, the great lie that we sell ourselves is that leaders should be somebody that have not been through the desert themselves. And I honestly don't want to learn from somebody that's perfect. I want to learn from somebody that's made all the mistakes and says, hey, this is the right way to go. And I figured it out, and I'm finally out of the craziness, and I believe that you can be out of it too. And when people are lost or they feel like they don't have an idea of what they want to do in their life, there's always something inside. There's a calling in us that says that I was meant for something more. I know that we all feel that way. I felt that way myself. And I totally understand that feeling of like, the world told me go to college. So I went to college, hated it. And then the world told me, well, maybe trade school. So I tried that, hated that. And working a 9-to-5 job, I do not mind working. I will work 16 hours a day without even batting an eye, as long as I believe in what I'm doing and I feel like it's actually producing and productive. And I don't see anything wrong with having a job. I think that I just know that for myself, 9-to-5 was just going to never be enough for me. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to be in more control of what my future looked like. And I know really, really amazing people that served in the military, and they worked there 20 years. And I'm so proud. My husband's Marine. I have a son in the Air Force and a daughter in the Army. And I think that's fantastic. I have friends that have worked jobs and they've retired and they have pensions and worked for the state. I think that's wonderful. One of my very best friends just retired last night working for the state. So I'm not down on jobs. I just happen to know that we are created to do more. And I could talk for hours, but in the US, we used to be more self-employed, creating, providing. I have cheese, you have eggs, let's trade. Early 1900s, like 80% of us were business owners that were creating. And then pre-COVID, we were like 27%. What happened? We taught people to be employees instead of creators. And then post-COVID, I heard a statistic that said that we're like 7% small business owners. So my heart is like, let's create. Let's stop thinking that the employer is going to provide for me everything that I could ever possibly want. And I'm not opposed, like the city just passed an ordinance a year ago where we have to provide sick leave. And I already did that for my staff. I had employee benefits, medical, all of that. But if I was starting out and I was required to do those things, it's really difficult. And that idea is that somebody else is responsible for me is really, in my opinion, it's a hindrance, not a benefit. And so not that I want to get on the big soapbox, but I just really feel like we should get back to creating as a country and look at something that bothers you, look at the world around you and say, like I met with a girl today and she said, I was thinking, what about a plant watering business? And I was like, that's a genius idea. Like, I would pay for that because I'm hardly ever home, you know? I mean, she just saw a need and said, do you think the world would want that? I do think the world would want that. You just look around and you go, what can I do that's going to add value? And I think that makes the world a way better place than passing laws to raise minimum wage. And
that's how Main Event started, right? I mean, you had a caterer that didn't show up and you're like, this is a need.
Yeah.
This could have been a disaster, and what should have been the most special moments of your life. And all it took was somebody to step in that, or all it would have taken somebody to step in that, be dependable, show up, do what they said they were going to do when they were going to do it. And if that space didn't exist, you created it. And I think that you're absolutely right. And kind of going back to that learned helplessness, if we've told ourselves that, no, this is just how things are, we just have to deal with it, that's not the way that we need to make a dent in this world.
I don't think you make the world a better place by working and doing what everyone else is continuing to do. I think the world gets to be a better place when we start looking at, this is broken, how can I make that better? What can I do that will add value in life? And the market rewards that. Sometimes we do get high on our own supply. That's what Tom Billieu said to me about Zippy Bears is you got to be careful that you're not high on your own supply, because I really happen to like that product. But so that is the other thing that I tell people when they're talking about starting businesses is make sure the market wants it,
Well, and also I think you've already mentioned it. It's like people have different paths that were created for different things. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with Rory Vaden? Do you know that name? He's I think you would really appreciate him in some of his books. One of the things he said though is he talks about exploiting his uniqueness in the service of others.
I like that.
And understanding like what makes him tick, like his gifts are different than mine. My gifts are different than yours. But I think all of us we're trying to exploit our uniqueness, our talents, our gifts in the service of others, not ourselves, because that's fun for a while, but it doesn't last very long. And you have such a heart, Kimberly, for bringing up others and supporting others. And I'm grateful for you joining us, for encouraging our clients. And I'm confident that this conversation will exhort others to get off the sidelines and step into what they know that they should be doing. Because that's the other part of this. A lot of people know what they should do. At least maybe not the long road, but at least what the next step is.
Yeah.
But they give themselves a bunch of excuses. It's not the right time. I don't have this. I need another certificate. Yeah. Tomorrow sounds like a great plan, but it's never going to get here.
I know. How many of us wish that we would have just filled our retirement accounts when we were 20? That little chart. Yeah. If you just invest from 18 to 21.
Yeah. But no, you feed people more than just physical food. And I appreciate that about you.
That. Thanks.
So just real quick, you have multiple locations, at least 2 now, right? 2 restaurants now. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
KimberlyFischer.com. Yeah,
Okay.
you get everything from there. I do podcasting. I have content courses that I teach people how to run businesses. And KimberlyFischer.com.
KimberlyFischer.com. All right.
Fischer, Fischer.
We'll put that in the show notes too. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Join us next time for another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us 2 quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.